Hello, and welcome to Martian Peace Theater. I am your host, the Starving Martian, and today I am very pleased to be able to show off the very first issue of Mars Attacks comics ever printed. And no, it's not this one here. Say hello to Mars Attacks from Pocket Comics 1988. Or at least if you can see it, say hello. Let's move in a little bit closer, shall we? So this is Mars Attacks issue number 1 of 54. At least that's what the cover says. Unfortunately, only 4 of these would ever be printed. The idea was to take each and every card in the Mars Attacks trading card series from 1962 and make a mini pocket-sized comic book, 32 pages, worth of story out of each and every card. And if you know the original trading card series, there was 55 cards in the series, but the last one was just a checklist, so not much of a story you can get out of there. So the idea was to make 54 pocket comics. They sold in groups of 2. They're apparently sold in some sort of box, and each box came with the mini comic and also with a card. I own one of the cards that goes with these comics. The cards are actually harder to come by than the comic books themselves. This is card number 1, Martian Ruler, and we'll see him in the comic itself. As you can see, the cards and the comics are roughly, well, not the same size, but for a comic book, this is pretty tiny. I thought this might be like the size of like an Archie comic or something, but it's far smaller than that. So I only own one of those cards, but frankly, it's the best out of the 4. But yes, that's one of the tragedies, really, of this mini comic series not taking off. Not only are we left with an incomplete story, only 4 ever made, but we could have had a whole 54 card set of Mars Attacks cards from 1988 instead of having to wait until the 1994 revival. But in any case, this is Mars Attacks, the mini comics from Pocket Comics. I'm not going to go through every detail of every issue, but as I said, every issue, the story of that issue is inspired by the first, or by the card rather, that it's based off of. Oddly enough, the covers are not. As you see, the invasion begins. The first card does make the cover of the first issue, but starting in issue number 2, we see that although the card itself is Saucer's Approaching, they use Prize Captive as the cover. And it does make a stunning cover, but I wonder what they would have done when they got that far. I suspect there's some cards that just didn't make as good cover shots. And also there's a whole section in the middle of the card series where it's nothing but bugs invading, giant insects that the Martians have mutated, and they might not have wanted to use those. So if they were going to skip over covers entirely, what were they going to do for covers once they ran out? Well, here's what they did, and this is rather clever, somewhat interesting. This is the cover for Mars Attacks Pocket Comics issue number 3. They label it as Shock Troops, but it's actually part of the card that we know as Burning Flesh. And so the next issue had the rest of the picture, the rest of the card. So when you put the two together, you get the full picture of the aliens roasting this guy. So let me just show off some of the highlights of this 4-part series. It begins, oddly enough, not even with the Martians themselves, but with a young boy named Johnny, who is in class. He's looking at Mars Attacks trading cards. Here's Johnny. Put in your own Ed McMahon joke if you like. There's him, he is looking at his trading cards. and his teacher calls him out on it. He ends up staying behind to write "I will not disrupt the class" on his chalkboard. Instead, he draws this picture of a Martian strangling his teacher. Johnny's got issues. In fact, Johnny actually says, "Where's that dog-faced Hatcher now? She's gonna die." Yeah, Johnny needs to see his counselor. Instead, what happens to Johnny is apparently his chalk drawing comes to life and grabs him and pulls him inside of the chalkboard. This has absolutely positively nothing to do with the rest of the story. Johnny ceases to be a character from this point on. In the center of each comic, this was really good, you got a double page spread there of the original card. So here's The Invasion Begins. Nice big blown up version of the original card. Very nice. Again, it's a shame these things didn't survive the full 54 issues they were supposed to have. Also in issue number 1, you get to meet Amadeo Rex. This is Amadeo Rex, the Martian ruler. In fact, he was on that card I showed off earlier. And the cards are all taken directly from artwork inside the comics. So here's the page with Amadeus Rex, the leader of the Martians. And here again was the card. So you can see same artwork. We find out that Amadeus Rex is lying to the Martians, actually. He tells them that Earth has been attacking Mars and using powerful particle beams that are going to destroy the planet. And so when the Martians are attacking Earth and enjoying killing humans and everything, they think they're doing it out of vengeance. They think Earth should be theirs because Earth is destroying Mars. You know? So, far be it, of course, from our Earth leaders to lie to us about weapons of mass destruction to make us eager to go and fight an enemy. But that was issue number 1. Issue number 2, we move on and meet other characters. For example, Lord Ultimo. He actually is introduced towards the end of issue 1, but this is Lord Ultimo, looking his most fabulous as he struts down. He's kind of the leader of the Martian military. He's the one calling the shots during the invasion. And you also meet his second in command, a Martian by the name of Deimos, possibly Demos. I'm not positive how you pronounce that. Demos is somewhat cyborg, I guess. He has one robot eye. Here he is there. I don't know what happened to him, how he got that way, but he is blood hungry. He goes above and beyond his orders. In fact, he gets into trouble later in the series because he kills a bunch of Earthlings he was supposed to bring in for interrogation. But they attack some satellites and a U.S. space shuttle using this is quite hilarious. Let's see what they call it. The Jaws of Death. This is something that emerges from Demos's ship to destroy the shuttle, tears it apart along with any of the people inside. And when I say tears them apart, I mean tears them apart. They're not surviving this encounter. These comics, as I said, were printed in 1988. They do not have any comic code authority, so they can put whatever blood and guts they felt like doing. Issue number 3 follows the card issue number 3, attacking an army base, and has perhaps one of the most hilarious pictures of the entire series. A soldier on fire with his eyeball popping out, his flesh peeling off his bones, and he's screaming out, "It's a living hell!" Well, it's not going to be living for you much longer, but yeah, for some reason that image makes me crack up every time. And we also get to see the Wheel of Death, which is this giant buzzsaw, pops out of the saucer, slices people in two. It slices, it dices, it also makes julienne fries. It also makes a big, huge, bloody mess, as one would expect in Mars Attacks. And then issue number 4 here is, again, going through the series based off of card number 4, Saucers Blast Our Jets, which is not one of the more dynamic cards, and perhaps as a result, not one of the more dynamic issues. It's basically a dogfight in the sky with with missiles bouncing off of UFOs, and our pilots not accomplishing much at all. It does have one great shot here of a pilot who manages to get out of his plane. He's parachuting to safety, but Martians do not believe in safety, and so he gets quite toasted. And the last issue of the series ends with a UFO hovering over Washington, D.C., because the next card in the series was Washington in Flames, and they were going to continue the trend. In fact, you can see on the back of the last book the covers they were going to use for issues 5 and 6. Sadly, those issues would never see the light of day. And so that's more or less that. That is Mars Attacks, the 4-part Pocket Comics series from 1988. If you are a Mars Attacks fan, I highly recommend tracking these down. They're fairly cheap. They're a good price. I managed to get all 4 of these for about $12, including shipping. It's a bit step up from the original cover price, which was like 98 cents, but they're readily available. I got mine off of eBay. So hope you guys enjoyed. Again, the trading cards, not nearly as easy to come by, but a nice collector piece if you happen to collect Mars Attacks cards. Keep your eyes peeled. Alright guys, well this has been the Starving Martian. I'll be back again with another bit of Mars Attacks history for you some point in the near future. Until then, enjoy yourselves and watch the skies.